Welcome to Sideline Sisters, where we empower women in sports one conversation at a time. We celebrate the women who make the WNBA legendary while providing our unfiltered thoughts and analysis on the game. Winsider is expanding its network to include more diverse voices that are knowledgeable and passionate about the WNBA. Hear from the women who are redefining WNBA coverage and hoops talk.
I'm Jasmine Harper.
And I'm Ace Pedraza, and you're courtside with the Sideline Sisters. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Sideline Sisters. We are your hosts, Candace, Pedraza, and Jasmine Harper. Jazz, how are you doing? How did All-Star Weekend treat you? All of the above.
I'm doing pretty good, Ace. I hope you've been good as well. I know you've been traveling recently. Would like to hear a little bit more about that as well. But yeah, All-Star Weekend was a pretty good one. I got to cover it for Bleacher Report W or BRW Sports. So I was on the timeline with everybody else consuming content for literally like 3-4 days straight. It was a pretty good time, and I enjoyed seeing like the camaraderie, the laughter, the different ways that people interacted with each other. Even Kathy Engelbert, popping out and getting on Stud Buzz was a moment in history. So we can't forget that. But altogether, I think All Star Weekend was really one for the books. I appreciate how involved and totally kind of like buying in the players were for the weekend. Because I think leading up to All Star, nobody really knew what to expect in terms of if it would actually be entertaining or, what we're going to be able to see. So I'm definitely proud of everyone. And shout out to the Indiana Fever for really having like a good All Star weekend.
Yeah, it looked honestly like so much more active than I was expecting. And that's no shade towards Indiana or Indianapolis because I've heard that it's an excellent sports city. But I was like pleasantly surprised with how active everything was for the entire weekend. Like between the after parties, which we probably got like way too much of a glimpse into because of Stud Buttons and that 72-hour live stream. And
Lovely.
like we just saw so much of the players' personalities this weekend. And I thought that was really dope. And just watching them all interact with each other, like you could tell everyone is so, like at the end of the day, friendly with one another and like very much in solidarity with one another, which we could probably get into later. Yeah. But yeah, that was dope. And that's so amazing that you got to do content for it. And so you were on the ground for the All-Star Weekend.
No, wasn't on the ground. I was kind of the person like that was helping the person on the ground, which is fine with me. Like I'm one of those people for now, I'll say for this season. I don't have to be on the ground. Like sooner or later I would love to start, covering these events more consistently. But just even getting a glimpse into how things work for certain companies, especially like big name companies, big name networks. So I think that was just pretty enjoyable. I know we haven't had an episode in a while. It says the last one that we published was June 25th, but to Ace's and I's benefit, we did record an episode, but life started happening, and Ace is going to tell you about her travels. So yeah, we want to apologize, but we are here. We're definitely going to keep it consistent because we're basically halfway through the season anyway. So there's a lot to really start to get into as, things start to unfold.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, neither of us realized that episode never published until we were making plans for this week's episode. And that was before I went on vacation to Florida, where I was for a week with my wife's family, went to Universal. Very fun, except for just hate roller coasters, as I was telling Jazz before we started recording. So like that kind of sucked, but it was very cool. And we drove 15 hours going and 15 hours back. So 30 total hours of driving, which is interesting. Never will probably do that again, but you never know. Who's to say?
You have to have like a cross country road trip every once in a while. Like at least when we were driving to like California, you just went straight down, I think.
Yes. Yeah, no, absolutely not. I had a friend that suggested we cut through Tennessee on our way there for like to even just like go to Nashville and like stay there and like make more of the trip. And I was like, I don't think my body can handle that much like diversion.
It would have been so Sorry to interrupt. I recently
Yeah.
just went to Nashville like a week or two after my birthday. For
Okay.
one, the what is it called? It already has like elevation compared to Florida. Like my ears were popping. I felt like I was driving down a mountain, but I was going up a mountain.
I don't
Um,
know.
it was a very strange drive inside of Tennessee. I felt like I was in what are they called? The Appalachian Mountains or wherever
Oh
the
yeah.
Pharaoh people are.
Oh,
That's where I
not
felt
the
like the
Pharaoh people.
traveler was. But like actual Nashville was actually pretty fun. They have a place called Broadway Street where if you would have ended up in Nashville, you would have went to Broadway Street and your trip would have got delayed by a day. Like it's that much action to do. It's just like straight bars,
Yeah,
restaurants, clubs, like literally anything.
that's
Shout
awesome.
out to
Yeah.
Nashville. Y'all should get a WNBA team.
Oh my gosh. Yes, that would be so fun. That'll be my excuse to go there. But yeah, no, I
Literally.
mean, that was the only thing we didn't get to do. We also went to St. Augustine, which is like apparently the oldest
Oh
city
my gosh,
like
yes, lovely. I
in
love St.
Florida.
Augustine.
Yeah. My wife's cousin goes to college there. And
Okay,
so he
that's a
was like,
nice
let me show
college.
you. Yeah. I was like, he was, showing us around and I was like, you could tell this is like the oldest city. Like it was very
Mhm.
cool. It was very, very
Mhm.
cool.
Did you
I
see
went
the
to
fort?
no, because the thing was is that we went with a lot of older family members. So after like
Mm,
2 hours of walking, they were over it. I'm like,
yeah.
that's fair. Had plans to go back, weather wasn't cooperating, but
Mhm.
we that will be one of many trips that we take in the future. I did get to go to Bucky's. I'm wearing a Bucky's shirt right now.
Oh my
Bucky's for
gosh,
the first time.
I guess I understand the Bucky's hype. I've only been like one time, and I think it's the same one that you went to. It's
Yeah.
okay. Like it made me so uncomfortable being in that large of a gas station with that many people. It felt
It
like a
was
Walmart inside of an IKEA inside of a Sam's Club. Like it was just a little bit too much.
That's like an excellent description. Yeah, I thought that I had reached the end of the store. I was looking for like a shirt and like maybe a hat. I found a hat. I was like, I don't see anything that I like on a shirt, so let's just leave. And then I looked to my right, and then the store just kept going. And I was like, oh, okay. And then that plus like the 100 gas pumps, I was like, this is a lot. Very cult like following for Bucky's.
Chaotic,
Uh,
extremely.
but now that we're back, and we will absolutely be so much more consistent and not forget to publish any more episodes moving forward,
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
we could dive into some mid-season grades because we are officially at the midway mark. All-Star Weekend has come and gone. This is the home stretch for so many teams heading into August soon, and then we're getting into crunch time with the postseason coming up as well. A lot of teams on the bubble still. We have maybe two teams that have really separated themselves from the pack as the
Mhm.
obvious top teams, a few others that are very close, and then you have a lot that are kind of on that bubble. So we
A
decided
lot.
to, yeah, a lot. So we decided to sit down and give some grades to all 13 teams. Up to this point, midway through the season, we are recording on Wednesday, the 23rd, around 5:45 in the afternoon. So a lot of games haven't even begun for teams coming back from the All-Star break, but we did have a few games happen on Tuesday, the 22nd. Um, I personally didn't really take much of those games into account just because we're talking about first half. And that's what we wanted to talk about today, was just the midseason grades that we gave to all of the WNBA teams. And it wouldn't be grades without starting off with our lowest grades given out to teams. And these are teams that their season may or may not be cooked, as we so put it. The first team on that list, maybe to no one's surprise, would be the Dallas Wings. And Jazz, could you explain a little bit about why we gave a D to the Dallas Wings?
Yeah. So, in conjunction with this episode, make you all go over to winsider.com and check out a joint article that we also did for this. So, like, you get a little bit more breakdown here, a little bit more breakdown there, something for everybody. But in terms of the Dallas Wings and how they achieved the D, I mean, there's really not much to say about the Dallas Wings right now. And I'm saying that so lovingly and with care. This season is definitely cooked. It's a wash. And I think while injuries have definitely been a factor that has held the Dallas Wings back for like, I would probably say the last 3 seasons, at a certain point, it's not just injuries. We have players who aren't really bought in. Eurobasket also happened in the middle of the season, and Tierra McCowan left, who also was already not really getting a lot of production. You still have, excuse me, you still have the first year head coach and Chris Koklanis, who everybody has a lot of expectations for the Dallas Wings right now because of Paige Beckers. But even though he studied under Kurt Miller, Chris is not the head coach who I believe can carry the Dallas Wings into the future and really just be competitive alongside, Paige. It's unfortunate, but I think that they started the season with so much, what's the word? I'll say hope. They started the season with so much hope and enthusiasm. I think the draft lottery, following into Paige getting a ring, following into the number one pick, and then they had really good preseason games. I think that just steamrolled everybody into thinking they were going to cook this season, and they got cooked. So I think it's just like at this point in the season, let's just make sure Paige wins Rookie of the Year. Whatever we got to do, we're not going to be in playoff contention, so that's already going to be kind of like a nodule against her. And I just think that's a fact, not because of anything that Paige has done, but your team's just in like the bottom 3 places right now. So just make sure Paige can still be in the running for Rookie of the Year in our rookie team, and yeah, let's focus on the draft lottery after that.
Absolutely agree with everything you said. I just checked Tankathon as well. Dallas Wings
Tankathon?
are one in Tankathon. So they would be getting the number one overall pick next year too, just based on winning percentage.
Oh my gosh,
and
you're gonna
odds.
try to grab AZ.
Yeah, that's a given. They're flying her out.
Oh my gosh, they are flying her out. Yeah.
They
Okay.
literally
Sidebar. We found out so much stuff about the WNBA this weekend because of Stud Buds, and they caught AZ Fudd on the stream saying that she doesn't fly to Dallas all the time. The Wings actually fly her out, and I don't know if she knew the camera was right there. We don't care that the camera was right there.
Of course.
Dallas, you're not slick. Okay, we see you.
They're doing the absolute most to get her. I get it, but like, let's pump the brakes. And there's also a chance that, hey, Chicago could sneak in there, aka Minnesota could sneak in there because they own their pick. But there's a lot going on there. The other team, too much going on. The other team that we had under this season baby cooked category would be the Connecticut Sun. We gave them a D-. Jazz, since you covered this grade, would you want to dive into this one as well?
Yeah, no problem. I think with the Connecticut Sun, their season didn't even have a chance to get put inside of rice water. This is uncooked rice that never even saw a drop of water entering the pan anytime soon. Entering the midway point of this season, I believe they only won 3 games. And you respectfully, you have Tina Charles on your team who is having one of the best seasons of her career, not necessarily statistically, but the achievements and everything she is doing on top of the statistics is like very saddening to see how the Sun are not really doing anything for her in that regard. Like, I feel like one of the things that makes teams rally around greats so much is because they're influenced by them. And I think Tina Charles does a really great job of like pouring back into her team. So it's really disappointing to see that sometimes they can't really rally in close game situations. Excuse me. They did beat the Seattle Storm, which spoke more about the Seattle Storm struggling than the Connecticut Sun actually pulling away a win. But we did see some spurts of like maturity there, which I can appreciate. So ultimately, I mean, you're missing Marina maybe right now as well, but I don't think Marina is that big of a benefactor for the Sun to come in and just, keep them around that 7, 8, 9 seed mark where they should have been. But it's disappointing overall in the season. just make sure, kind of like Paige with the wings, make sure Sanaya Rivers can get the acknowledgement for all rookie. She has had a really good rookie season, even with everything she's had going on in her personal life. So yeah, the move to Boston looks a little bit more permanent. I'll say that.
Oof. Yeah, that would be probably to the benefit of everybody,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't want to. I can't speak too much on it, but I don't know. I think that would probably be best for them and the franchise. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I totally agree. I think Sanaya Rivers has been like kind of like their lone bright spot this season, and it's very obvious that after all of the moves that they, or maybe not the moves they made in the offseason, but more so like the people that left them in the offseason,
Yeah.
and then also trading Natasha Cloud, which you would do that deal 10 out of 10 times. New York was
Mm-hmm.
giving up 2 first rounders for her. Um, it was obvious they weren't trying to compete this year. I don't know if they thought that anyone would be worse than them, being the Dallas Wings, who are like struggling more than them. I guess according to Tankathon, of course, it averages out multiple years of records, or past 2 years, not past 2 years, but this and last. But
Mm-hmm.
they are not a fun watch, and it makes me sad because the Sun. I was just watching a Secret Base video on Asia Wilson's 2024 MVP season and how literally it was probably the single best individual performance in WNBA history from a player. And in one of the clips, they're talking about how she helped the Aces beat the 13-1 Connecticut Sun last year in one of those games. I'm like, oh my goodness, the Sun were like undefeated for a very
Yeah.
long time to begin the year last year, and now they
Mm-hmm.
are where they are. So that is why we gave the Sun that grade. Another team, we have 2 more teams under this category of season may be cooked. The third team would be the LA Sparks. On paper, I thought that the Sparks were going to be a lot more cohesive than they have been this year. I really liked that they were a part of that trade to land Kelsey Plum, because I felt like she was the perfect like dog mentality player to add to a team with rookies like
Mm-hmm.
Rickea Jackson and Cam Brink. And then you also have obviously like very talented veterans in Azurá Stevens and Dearica Hamby already in the fold.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like they had something really cooking up. They did not. And that has been super disappointing just because all they're really lacking in is just some sort of defensive intensity, which I dove into in that section. They have a defensive rating of 107.5 this year. So, not great. Definitely at the bottom rung of teams. So, even though they're getting pretty good output offensively from those players I mentioned and those veterans, including Kelsey Plum, it's just not enough because it's not so much a matter of them not scoring enough. It's them just not being able to stop other teams from scoring enough.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they're getting back though Cam Brink apparently at the end of this month. That's the
Okay.
timeline given by the team. So Cam Brink would be such a game changer for them if she has no minutes restrictions, which I assume she might, just to start, those few first games that she'll be back for. Especially defensively, like she is such a game changer. She was averaging 2.3 blocks per game before she got hurt last year. And she low-key looked like a defensive player of the year candidate, I feel like last year. Like she looked like she could definitely compete for that award as a rookie, which is saying a lot to what she looked like on that end of the floor. But we'll see what happens. Obviously, I don't think they're looking for a season-saving performance from her. They just want to see her healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Rickea Jackson, I was really looking forward to seeing her take a little bit more of a step this season. But I think that Lynn Roberts, the new head coach of the team, I just haven't seen the best rotations thrown out there, especially for her benefit.
Yeah.
So it's just been kind of a mess of a season from a team that I just wasn't anticipating to be messy at all from the Sparks. Some bright spots, like I said, Plum, Stevens, Hamby, like they've been just as good as we could have expected, especially Stevens, who I think is going to get a good amount of votes for like most improved player this season. And then also Sarah Ashley Barker seems to be a pretty decent rookie pick for them, or really decent draft pick for them. Um, Beyond that, I don't know. But I don't see a path for them improving without making some roster tweaks, filling out their bench with a little bit more consistent scoring and more size. Yeah, so that's why we gave them a D.
I think personally, like I'm a person who can look at things from an biased like point of view. I didn't think, and I feel like you can go back to one of our first episodes and I talked about it. I don't think the Kelsey Plum Jewel Lloyd trade was necessarily a good one. Like, yes, you got disgruntled players able to lead their organization, and I definitely think that that was the goal. And I believe they got to choose, like, um, the team of their choice or somewhere that they were in the running to go. But when it translates to on the floor, these two players don't really fit inside the systems that they're playing with. Especially with Kelsey wanting to go to LA to have the ball in her hands more. The personnel that she kind of has around her doesn't necessarily need that. She can definitely be a ball heavy guard. But when you have somebody like Rickea Jackson, who, like you said, hasn't really been used to her best advantage this year, and you also have somebody like Azare Stevens, who's actually having a really great year, who doesn't necessarily get all the touches because, that kind of goes to De'Erica Hamby, the company, even Ray Burrell. Ultimately, I think LA just kind of dropped the ball in this season, and I don't think they'll be able to kind of come back from it. But I think the same can be said about the next team, which is the Chicago Sky, who in the article is, if you look at the order, it doesn't really matter. But I think Chicago being the last team to move into the still in the running for the eighth seed section is best because I think if one team out of these four could turn it around, it would be Chicago, even though we gave them a D. So, Ace, would you like to kind of dive in about that a little bit?
Yeah, and I totally agree. I think that the performances that we saw Angel Reese put together also, like, for the majority of July kind of show that they could make that push with her as the hub for everything. I don't know if she is necessarily the best option for that, but I think that that's all they have right now. Like, I think that that's what Tyler Marsh has to rely on, is that she is able to be a focus on offense and also maintain her defensive presence, which is to say, just be one of the league's best defensive rebounders and just rebounders in general. Um, they are going to need so much more, though, out of like Camila Cardoso. They'll need a lot more out of Ariel Atkins, or just more consistency from Ariel Atkins. I feel like she'll piece together a really great game with really efficient scoring on all three levels. And then the next game will kind of be invisible. And that is just not sustainable, because I feel like the best way for the Sky and for Angel Reese to succeed is for her to have that number two scoring option next to her. And she doesn't have that consistently every night. Another complaint that I had, I feel like in a previous episode, why Tyler Marsh was so often playing Kia Nurse over Rebecca Allen, who I feel like provides a lot more defensively, provides a lot more length, and also is just as good of a scorer as Kia Nurse, who started off very slow, but actually is shooting pretty decently from three now. So that kind of confused me a bit. It feels like this season for Chicago is a lot of like growing pains, but I think they also still are very clearly missing that number two option next to Angel Reese, and specifically somebody who's able to facilitate and run the floor. That should have been Courtney Vandersloot, of course, but unfortunately she did suffer that torn ACL, so she's going to be out for the season. But they really desperately need like a true point guard next to Angel Reese and Camila Cardoso in order to really make that push. But I could see it happening. They've been really competing against, pretty tough opponents, the Minnesota Lynx most recently. So I feel like it's very doable for them to make that push. I don't know if I can see them doing so without still heavily relying on Angel Reese, who is beginning to look a little bit tired from the amount of work that she's expected to do on the floor for them. But yeah, that is why they are a D, but I guess a D with an asterisk instead of a plus.
Maybe, asterisk instead of a plus. I can take
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I can take that. Y'all ain't beat Chicago. If you know, you know. Um, but for Chicago to beat the Lynx, I think that was a very statement win. To not necessarily, we can count them out right now because of their record. But I think in the grand scheme of things, if there was a team, like I said earlier, to sneak back, it technically would be Chicago. And they could kind of, put up a fight with teams who are still in the running right now for the eighth seed. And the first team that we have in this section, which there are only two of them, is the Golden State Valkyries. So go ahead, Ace, and tell us what exactly the Valkyries have done, like leading up into the halfway mark of the season.
So I am a huge Golden State Valkyries believer. Like, I have bought stock in them. I fully believe that if they make it to the postseason, they're going to be a very difficult out. I'm not saying that I think they're going to make a deep run, but I think they will be a very tough team to face if you are one of the top seeded teams like the Phoenix Mercury or the Lynx or even New York. That is how I feel about them right now. But they did struggle a bit leading into the All-Star break. They had only gone 1-5 against competition like that of the caliber that I just mentioned. So they went 1-5 against the Lynx, the Storm, the Mercury, the Dream, and the Aces to finish out like their last stretch before the All-Star break. So they definitely have some things to work on. I believe that Mercury game was extremely close and only one on an Alyssa Thomas clutch free throw. So they're able to stay in these games pretty tightly against very, very tough competition. But it's just a matter of, I feel, remaining disciplined on the defensive end. They are the fourth best defensive team in the league by defensive rating. They are currently holding a better net rating than the Aces and the Mystics with 1.7. So they're the last team in that 1-8 slot that have a positive net rating. And they have had ridiculously great contributions from players like Kayla Thornton and Veronica Burton. And they have completely embraced their roles, I feel like, as leaders of the team. And I feel like their intensity kind of dictates the rest of the teams. So I don't think there's anything wrong with them. I feel like a lot of people started to kind of like sell their stock in the Valkyries once they started to struggle. I think it's just a matter of them, like I said, becoming a bit more disciplined defensively and closing out games, which is an issue we saw, I think, from a lot of teams leading into the All-Star break. And I think it had a lot more to do with like fatigue than anything else. But I'm very
Mm-hmm.
bought in. Head coach Natalie Nakase should be getting a few Coach of the Year votes if they make it to the postseason, in my
Yeah.
opinion. And yeah, I'm very excited to see how they do down the stretch.
Yeah, I think I have a couple points. First one is going to be the Golden State Valkyries are making a very great example and leading by example for an expansion team who's being competitive and is even in the running with somebody like the Las Vegas Aces right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think they are proving that the investment and the attention, the time, the resources can really put your organization in a position to succeed. And I'm excited to see, how other teams integrate into the fold, the expansion draft for them, and if they can have somewhat the same or similar success as the Valkyries. I also agree with you about Natalie. I'm a believer of her, of course. I think it's a little bit easier right now with the Valkyries to believe in her Ace's ascension than it is Tyler Marsh with the Sky. But also, I think they were dealt different hands for sure. And Natalie just happened to have the best one. But ultimately, I just think that the Valkyries, kind of like you said, can you keep the party going? How long are you able to kind of, stay in the running, stay in the hunt, and kind of galvanize with your teammates in the locker room to make a lengthy run? I also posed that question about another team that we'll get into a little bit later. But one thing that I think I noticed, just looking at the schedule, out of the 6 games they've already played so far in July, they've only won one. They've lost all the rest of them. But through the month of June, when they had 11 games, they also went 6-5. I think that has to do with some of the turnover of a lot of people coming and going for Eurobasket. So it does skew their results a little bit, but I think ultimately, like, they're in a really great spot.
Yeah, totally agree. And I feel like I think I feel the same way about the other team that's in this category that are still in the running for the eighth seed, and that's the Washington Mystics. So I feel like the face of them has been their rookies. I feel like Kiki Irifin and Sonia Citron, you have not been able to like talk about the Mystics without mentioning one or both of them and just how spectacularly they've been playing.
Absolutely.
Maybe less mentioned has been Brittany Sykes, which is ridiculous because she
Mm-hmm.
has been putting up an all-star season. But Jazz, if you wanted to dive into what makes them such a
Yeah,
bubble team.
just kind of building off what you said. I mean, they were 11-11 going into the All-Star break, tied with the Las Vegas Aces, but I gave the Aces an edge because of Asia Wilson, of course. But I think with the Mystics, they have a good combination of young players that aren't afraid to come in a W and make some noise. I think Sonia Citron, who is one of the most like quiet and humblest personalities, is like a dog when she's on the court, and I really love a player like that. Kiki Iriofin is he kind of comes across as the girl next door, like very sweet off the court, but then on the court, she is getting into it with a whole bunch of people.
Yep.
But she's also playing at like a highly competitive level. Brittany Sykes, we already know what Slim is capable of. It's nice to see her getting this recognition now. I think I saw a video over All-Star Weekend about how she has a basketball journey tattoo, and the only thing left right now for her to achieve is being on an Olympic team. She already has the championship. She did the college route. Everything else, she's just looking to get to that next level. Um, Ultimately, I think Washington just needs to win more games than they lose. And I know that sounds so basic and like, oh, she doesn't know basketball. I know what I'm talking about because the Mystics, like, they just need to keep games close and then execute down the stretch. Their problem is not winning games. As we can see, most people had them as 13th. I didn't have them as 13th. I think I had them about like maybe 9 or 10. But for them to be sitting, I believe, at the ninth seed right now, well, tied for 8 with the Aces. So they would technically be 8 and 9 if we separate, but they're tied for 8. Um, in the head-to-head matchup, the Mystics won over the Aces. They would get that playoff spot, and the Las Vegas Aces wouldn't. So I think that they just need to keep, kind of like you said with the Valkyries, keep the party going. But I think the difference with the Valkyries is the Mystics need to demand a little bit more from the bench. We're not really getting a lot of production from Aaliyah Edwards. Stephanie Dolson does have her moments, but as a veteran, a shooter, and a big in this league, we need to see you on the court more and contributing more. And Lucy Olsen, company off the bench, and everyone else. Like, can we all come together and really just stage a really long and healthy run? We have the bodies, we have the legs. We just need to make sure that the IQ translates to the court. So I think the Mystics can, take a spot from somebody in the middle of the pack in the next section that we're going to talk about. But at the same time, I can also see if it's not there, it's not there. And that's totally okay. They exceeded expectations this season, regardless of what happens.
Yeah, totally agree. And looking at the standings now, after a few games were played yesterday, um, Washington is one game behind the Indiana Fever for the 7th seed. They're actually the 8th seed right now. And then Golden State is right there. They are 10 and 12. Washington is 11 and 12, and Indiana is 12 and 12. So it's tight. It's tight for that 8 seed. And the next team that we're going to talk about, or I guess Jazz is going to really dive into because I know that she has thoughts on this
I have
team,
no thoughts whatsoever.
is the 12 and 11 Las Vegas Aces. And they are the first team that we are talking about who are considered quote unquote middle of the pack in the standings. So these are teams that are pretty comfortably, I would say, in that 6 to 8 range, but obviously need improvement before they end up falling out from that range. So, Jazz, what would you like to say about the Aces and their C plus grade?
The kitchen is hot in Las Vegas. They are not putting out the fire. They need to. If you can't put out the fire, it's time to evacuate. Um, I was honest. I think in my middle of the pack assessment of the Las Vegas Aces, even though I'm a fan, this is my team. Not that I was mean. Just want to clarify. Um, I think the issue with the Aces is, and I say this so respectfully because I love all of them. Nobody's as a unit. Nobody's scared of the Las Vegas Aces anymore. They are scared of Asia Wilson, and they're keeping their eye on Jackie Young. Everybody else on the team, and I hate to say it about the point guard too, because I think Chelsea has definitely earned her respect in this league. everybody isn't really stepping up to the plate right now. And I think they lost a lot of people who made their team complete. Even though last year didn't necessarily work out, I definitely thought that if they ran it back with the people who actually left, we probably wouldn't be having this issue right now. They would probably be at the top of the list with all the other teams like who we know can rely on all of their bench and get production from them. Alicia Clark, Tiffany Hayes, Kate Martin, and Sydney Colson left during free agency or the expansion draft. And Alicia Clark is with the Seattle Storm, sitting at the top of the list. Tiffany Hayes is with the Golden State Mercury, as well as Kate Martin, and they're in the hunt for a playoff spot. And then Sydney Colson is also on the Indiana Fever, who's a little bit above the Las Vegas Aces right now. They all went to teams that could see a run in the postseason, but I think for the Aces to just be so far down in the standing, it almost comes across as disrespectful. Like, how could the Aces like go from like consistently number one and having some of the best records in the league to just dropping to number 8 in a matter of 2 seasons removed from a championship? Um, I think they need to get their ego back. I think they need to get their edge back. I think that Becky Hammond has not. Becky Hammond is not going to baby anybody. I'll say that. You're either going to show up to work and act like you want to be here, or I'm just going to let you kind of, do your own thing and the results will show for themselves. But I don't even think that the team has the connection with Becky right now to where everybody's on the same synergy, same accord. And you can tell that they're on the same accord because they will be winning more games than they're losing. Entering the All-Star break, they were 11-11, again, tied with the Washington Mystics. And just going back to that trade, nothing's translating right now. The dividends are not paying off, and everything kind of looks out of whack, similar to the Los Angeles Sparks, but they're just winning out a little bit more games because of the competition at the time that they played. When we're going up against head-to-head matchups for the other people that we haven't even talked about on this list, Las Vegas might lose out. So a little disappointing in how they look this season. Definitely need more from the bench, yes, but also Chelsea Gray, Jewel Lloyd, Kia Stokes' sister. You bounce between the benches starting. I'm sorry, I need more. If Melissa Smith can give us more in 7 games, I need you to fight for your spot like somebody's about to take it. Because after this season, somebody's probably going to take it. So I just need the Aces to really play like they're hungry, like y'all actually give a damn about winning a championship this season. Because it's not coming across like that to people. Asia Wilson is going to be Asia Wilson. She's dropping all the signature shoes out here. Everybody's really on the Asia train right now, but everybody isn't on the Aces wave anymore. And I just think that kind of speaks to how people see them right now.
Totally agree. And something that really shocks me is that they just look a step slow right now, and they have looked a step slow since last year.
Yes.
They don't have a first rounder next year. They keep trading away their first rounders.
Keep trading.
And I actually, off the top of my head, no GM. I couldn't off the top of my head tell you when their next first rounder is, but I know it's not 2027 either.
2028.
It's probably 2028.
Yeah, we don't even have no picks within the next 3 years is crazy. I'm sorry.
That year doesn't even compute to me in terms of their timeline and Asia Wilson's timeline. I hate to bring up the men's NBA, but the MNBA, I see a lot of people comparing her situation currently to Nikola Jokic's with Denver. I don't see it 100%, but I can kind of understand it from the perspective of after that championship, they kind of have done absolutely nothing to really surround him with an actual supporting cast.
It kind of gives a little bit more Golden State, only because Kevin Durant coming in and helping them win the championship was Candace Parker before she got hurt. And then now Klay Thompson has left, Kelsey Plum has left, and we're sitting here, we had a championship run, but what's next?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they are truly a middle of the pack team that could really go either way. It really depends, but we know Asia Wilson can't do it all on her own.
And
it's just ridiculous. We can't keep asking her. Um, the other middle of the pack team that we gave a C plus to are the Indiana Fever, who have had a bit of a weird season. They went from, I would say, being one of the more spoken about teams for their free agency signings. Like they got Natasha Howard, they got DeWanna Bonner this offseason. They also got Sydney Colson. They they also were able to sign Sophie Cunningham as well. So it just seems like they are set once you start off the season, especially to be surrounding Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston with that level of talent. Instead, what we've gotten is that Tawana Bonner asking out and leaving and now signing with the Phoenix Mercury, which indicated some sort of possible dysfunction within the organization and with the team and just her fit with the roster overall. Sydney Colson, she has been a really great veteran leader for the team, but hasn't been too much of a contributor to their offense. They were able to get Ari McDonald on a full contract once DeWanna Bonner actually was released from the team. So she's been actually a really great addition for them. And Aaliyah Boston and Kelsey Mitchell and Lexi Hall have basically picked up where they left off last season, which is to say with dominance, which has been great. The missing factor here is your star point guard, which is Caitlin Clark, and she has been out for a majority of the season with various injuries. She had a quad injury at the beginning of the year. Now she's dealing with a groin injury. And so it's just kind of a question of whether Indiana will be able to, A, kind of weather the storm of Caitlin Clark's injuries and be able to push for the postseason. And then hopefully she's back way before then, but at least hope she's back by the postseason to help them make a shocking run. Or they could just end up falling off and keep falling down the standings, and maybe the team decides to shut her down entirely. Just because I think it's even come as a surprise to herself that she's been dealing with so many injuries after having a completely injury-free collegiate career and rookie season.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. They're a very 500 team to me. Even with Caitlin Clark, it has appeared that way. A lot of their issues defensively also have really popped up this year. They're completely unable to close in the fourth quarter, which has been like a consistent theme with or without her on the floor. If they can fix that, I think that they can still compete without her. But they certainly, in my opinion, cannot compete with top teams without
Mm-hmm.
Caitlin Clark being who she looked like she was about to be prior to the quad injury, because before that injury, she looked ready to potentially insert herself into the MVP conversation because she
Oh,
was
they inserted her into the
they,
conversation before we even had a chance to bring up the
yes,
conversation.
absolutely. Now it's just looking like she is just trying to be healthy and provide something to the team at all, like beyond chasing or trying to achieve that individual accolade. So we shall see. I mean, I've loved what I've seen from Leah Boston this year. She's been stellar. Kelsey Mitchell had a really cold May and then just completely looked like a different player after that. Lexi Hall, sharpshooter still. Sophie Cunningham gives them what we expected her to give them off the bench, which is just shooting and defense. Natasha Howard has started to really click. They just need Caitlin Clark back. They really do, because the jury is a bit out, but they're definitely a C plus, I would say.
Definitely. I kind of have them along with the aces as well because I feel like they have the personnel, but everything's just not coming together. Um, and the production just isn't there for everybody on the bench. I think with Caitlin Clark, they're definitely more of a threat with her than without her. But I've had groin injuries before as a soccer player. Trying to play on that is one of the most uncomfortable and excruciating pains you can ever feel. So I really prefer her to take her time coming back. If you need to sit to the postseason and allow Stephanie White to make a scheme for everybody else with you being out, sit to the postseason. There's no point in kind of re-injuring yourself like you just did right before the All-Star break. You know, to win a couple regular season games if you're already going to be in playoff contention. There's no reason to like overexert yourself. I agree. I have enjoyed the play of Aaliyah Boston lately. She is getting a little bit more spicier. with the
Oh
other
yeah.
post players down low. But I mean, like, this is a league where Brittany Griner ran it for like a decade, before things started to unfold. So definitely excited to see how the Fever in the season. But I think that preserving Caitlin's health so that you can go far in the off season, sorry, in the postseason is the goal, because then we just change playoff games and formattings and rules and which teams can go where. I think people didn't go to away games for the lower seed until the third game. And so now they're doing the every other game type thing. Fever, you all push for this. Let's make sure your girl is there. Let's make sure she's healthy and give us the show that like everybody wants to see and that you guys want to put on.
Totally agree. That would be something if she came back for the postseason after like getting legitimate rest, and they are like this 7 seed that is secretly like a 3. That would be crazy. That would
Yeah,
be really wild.
I give them 4 at best.
4. That's fair.
Yeah.
Totally fair. Fair, because we're going to talk about some of the teams that would maybe be more considered like a 3 seed, potentially, or have a shot at it. And these are the top of the class teams. The first one that we have listed is the Phoenix Mercury, who we gave an A-2, and I could dive into this one a little bit since I wrote up this section. But it feels like Phoenix had like an equal part very successful offseason, but also got really lucky, like just 50-50. I feel like obviously acquiring Satu Sablé and Alyssa Thomas were huge. But then they also were probably not expecting the production from their rookies to be so great. Lexi Held, prior to her injury, she looked legitimately like a threat on offense, especially off the bench for Phoenix. She had that huge game where she hit like 44% from 3-point range on like a pretty good diet of shots against the Golden State Valkyries. Monique Akoa Makani, she has been lights out from 3-point range as well. Probably one of the best rookie shooters from 3 aside from Tahina Baupau. And they have just gotten a little bit of something from everybody on that team. And I feel like it all falls on Alyssa Thomas's plate. And she's done such an excellent job, as per usual, of making sure that everyone gets involved, being aggressive defensively. She is once again an engine for a team, this time just not Connecticut. And Satu Sablé, she, when healthy, is still a unicorn of a player on both ends of the floor, maybe more so on the offensive end of things, but she's going to be coming back healthy. Kalia Copper is coming back. We have not seen her play at all. And so they're not even fully healthy yet. And they already look like a major threat in the standings. So yeah, they're getting back Sablé, Kalia Copper. Lexi Held is also coming back, I believe, today during their game. And so I don't know. I don't really have much bad to say about Phoenix other than I'd like to see them really run the gauntlet for the rest of this season to really feel like, all right, like you are a legitimate title threat again. Because I feel like they have the scoring on all 3 levels. Defensively, they're sound. I just want to see them really dominate for the second half of the season to really show me like, all right, you're in this.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I really don't have, like you said, anything bad to really say about Phoenix except for get healthy. Like, what's going on? Why is everybody either injured or sick right now?
Yeah.
That's probably my only critique. But I think one of the crazy things that we have seen from Phoenix is that they've had injuries all season between AT, Sabri, and Ka. They've all been out at different times and haven't really. I think they only played like maybe 1 or 2 games together. Don't quote me. I'm just guessing here. But I don't even think they played like 10 games together. So it's very interesting to see at different points where health is affected, they're still, performing at the top of the class. So I definitely enjoy watching them play basketball, and Alyssa Thomas is definitely an MVP candidate.
Yeah. Absolutely agree. Alyssa Thomas, you will forever be an MVP candidate in my heart. And
Forever.
it's no different this year. The other team that I really don't have like a lot to critique is the Atlanta Dream, who I feel like we're considered a sort of surprise after seeing how well they've begun the season, but like not really a surprise at the same time because they're a team like the Sparks were on paper. I was like, yeah, this is going to be a really solid team, but they've actually executed and been able to get the most out of not just their starting unit, but their bench as well. I feel like Tahina Pau is like a big part of that as a rookie, which is, again, same thing with Phoenix. I don't think they could have anticipated that she'd be as impactful off the bench in spurts. But something I noted just in the article is just with their new head coach, Carl Smesko, his whole philosophy is around 3-point shooting and like getting a good volume of 3-point shots up, which they have done. I would say the only player that's really like benefited strongly, other than Tahina Pau, is probably Alicia Gray, who has been having like the best shooting season from three of her career, and who was an All-Star this year and almost won back-to-back 3-point contests. So that's been excellent to see. I would love to see more efficient shooting from Atlanta, but I really enjoy the process. I feel like it makes sense for them. And for them to continue to run double big lineups with Brittany Griner and Brianna Jones, like that just makes the absolute most sense for them to do is just keep getting the shots up. And it'll be to their benefit. Like defensively, they're really solid. They have the size to really compete with teams like Liberty and the Lynx. And so I would just like to see them get a little bit more efficient. I think that's like my one critique. And that's why we keep them a B.
I think one of the saddest things is there's only really two teams that I think you could play two bigs at the same time right now. And this is no slight to the Minnesota Lynx, but the New York Liberty for one with Stewie and John Quill. Now they have Emma Meeseman and they also have Leo who can stretch between the 3 and the 4. And then you have the Atlanta Dream, surprisingly, with Bree Jones and Brittany Griner. I don't think any other team is really keeping up with them in that regard in the front court. But I think it's also been a testament to Carl Smethsko's formula coming into the season. I wasn't sure how it would look with the two of them next to each other, but I think that's like the Dallas Wings' fault for never playing Kalani Brown and Tierra McCowan. Yes, I'm bringing it up again. For never playing them next to each other. So to actually see it working for somebody and having like optimal success this season, it's actually kind of crazy. Like, well, maybe we should do this more often, like for every team.
Yeah.
Let's not just keep the formula in Atlanta. But definitely impressed with Alicia Gray this year. Another All-Star nod, rightfully deserved. Have been watching her for her majority of her career, so it's really nice to see her get her due. And I think with Ryan Howard, I really just hope she stays healthy. I think she's gotten hit in multiple places between the ribs and the knee and maybe an ankle or something like that. So I think make sure, kind of like when it comes to Caitlin with the fever for Atlanta, if you have to sit your star player for a prolonged stretch, and personally, I think this is the best time to do it. Trying to win games straight out the All-Star break is going to be tough. Like some people and some teams are well rested, while other teams have been on stud streams all weekend and like having the time of their lives in Indy. So I think just being cognizant of what your players have going on right now, especially Ryan, making sure she's protected. Tahina Papa is playing really great for them. Let's continue to get her more touches and more minutes and just keep the formula going with Atlanta. I don't really see too much that needs to change right now. I would like to see a little bit more consistency. I think that's the only thing that has me setting them at a B. I really wanted to give them like at least a B plus or like an A minus, but I think that when you look at teams who have A minuses, there's a clear differential between the two. And I think them, along with the Seattle Storm, who also has a B, are sitting on the same block right now.
Yeah, completely agree. And shout out to Mark Schindler, who does great W work. He put out a really good Patreon article on the double big lineup with Brianna Jones and BG on his Patreon. So I would highly suggest checking that one out because I think he's gone into a few double big lineups in the WNBA. Them, and I think I just saw a Chicago Sky one about Angel Reese and Camila Cardoso. So
okay, I forgot about them. Yeah. No disrespect.
I don't know if it was an article that was good. Saying that it was a good thing that they were doing that, but it exists.
Yeah, no disrespect to them. I didn't mention them in that, but I don't think they're at the same level as Stewie and JJ and BJ and Bree Jones. Sorry.
No, just and like first, just from a experience standpoint, they have a ways to go. So like that's super valid.
Mm-hmm.
And the other team that we threw into the category of top of the class is the Seattle Storm, who we gave a B to. And Jazz, do you want to dive into a little bit of why we gave them a B?
Yeah, I think this is Skylar, Gabby, and Neka's team. It's pretty obvious, and I think this might be their team for at least like 2 or 3 more seasons. They ended the first half of this season 14-9, which doesn't necessarily sound bad, but the games that they fell to, or certain opponents, I'll say, made it all a little bit more questionable. So you lost to a team like the Connecticut Sun. The Washington Mystics are really great opponents, yes, but the Seattle Storm have more experience and size to combat that. Same thing with the Valkyries and then the Indiana Fever. Um, Caitlin Clark didn't even have a good game that game, if I'm not mistaken. And I think
Mm-hmm.
they played back-to-back games on top of that, and they still lost to them. Kind of similar to Atlanta, Seattle is a little bit inconsistent, though they have really good players, 1 through 5, and even the bench. I will say that I would like if Seattle could use their bench a little bit more,
Mm-hmm.
but I trust the first 5 and first few off the bench even more to understand that bench production is going to come in certain moments. Kind of like I think it might have been the 2021 Aces, definitely 2022 because I think that's when Chelsea Gray was hurt. So Sydney Colson was coming off the bench and was just shooting dagger threes out the arena. Like sometimes I think with the Seattle Storm, that's what you're going to see in bench production. Like, hey, we need somebody to step up when their number is called. So I think that's kind of where Seattle's mindset is with their bench at the moment. Um, but because we don't know who they show up as all the time, you still have to give them the respect for their personnel and their record. But I think there are different ways that Noelle Quinn can incorporate her assets a little bit more. So Skylar Diggins, Gabby Williams, and Ezzy McLemore, they all like to stretch the floor, even Neka Gumake. So finding different ways to get more transition buckets. I do think that Seattle is a little bit unselfish when it comes to playing together, which is totally fine. But I think they need to play more aggressive, or like I think Skylar is a little bit more score first guard than pass first. But I've noticed she has been passing a little bit more lately. And Gabby's a little bit more pass first and score first, but sometimes you want Gabby to be more aggressive. So I think finding that balance between between your players so that the offense can flow kind of a little bit more seamlessly, I think that'll definitely help. And utilizing number 2 pick, Dominique Malonga, we've seen Paige, Sonia, Kiki, I think besides like Georgia Moore, a lot of the first round rookies are getting a lot of burn, and Dominique Malonga, excuse me, is not. We did see her last night in a game versus the Dallas Wings, but again, it's the Dallas Wings whose season is. So I'm expecting big things out of Seattle to end the season. I really, the 3 seed is going to be tough. The 3-4 seed is going to be tough because then they then might have to face like a really good opponent. But I think ultimately it just comes down to locking in your identity and just sticking with it. I don't think they don't have an identity. They're just not acting on it right now for some weird reason. I just want them to get it together. Real simple.
Absolutely. And yeah, I feel like that was a problem for them last year, not necessarily giving enough burn to like their rookies. And like as the person that's been doing the rookie spotlights on Winsider, which you could check out on winsider.com, I would love to write about Dominique Malongo, but I can't really because she has not been getting much burn. And so I totally agree. I would love to see them kind of settle into a more consistent rotation that's a bit more expanded. Um, and we could, for time, just dive right into the 2 teams that we haven't mentioned because they are what we would consider the Dean's List of WNBA teams in the standings right now. We'll start off with the one with the quote unquote lower grade, but still a great grade in the
Mm-hmm.
2 of the list. Or no, sorry, actually, they have the top grade. That is my bad. The
Well,
Minnesota
either one,
Lynx.
however you want to do it.
The Minnesota Lynx are probably the most obvious A plus of like any team in the league right now.
Mm-hmm.
Jazz, if you want us to dive into the best team in the WNBA.
Yeah. As a person who did not necessarily enjoy the 2024 WNBA Finals, mainly because my team was beaten in order for the Liberty to get there, um, Minnesota has come back like they are a heartbroken girlfriend who cut all their hair off, dyed it red or blonde, and they're coming back for revenge. Ending the season or the midway point of the season, excuse me, 20-4. They only lost 4 games halfway through the season. That's pretty crazy. We've
Mm-hmm.
seen really good runs from New York and the Las Vegas Aces in past years, but I don't 20-4 is kind of tough. I'm sorry. In only a 44 season game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 44 season. Sorry. Which was extended this year. So just imagine if they didn't have those extra games right now, they might be 20-0. Just saying.
True.
But on top of that, Nafisa Collier has been showing us why she's one of the best players in the league. She won Defensive Player of the Year last year, and right now with the Minnesota Lynx being number one, it's really feeling like Asia might not get that fourth MVP trophy, but it's okay because just like the NBA with Jokic, they don't want to give it to her, but they give it to Shea, they give it to Joel and B. Like it's totally okay. But I do think Nafisa Collier deserves it. He has been really a nucleus and very strong centerhold piece for her team. And I think that you can see that in the play of players like Kayla McBride, Courtney Williams, Alana Smith, Jess Shepard, and Tisha Hyman has been getting really good minutes off the bench as well. And most of those players were also all stars. They had 3 players selected with B, Kayla, and Courtney. And then, of course, T popped up with the stud Bud Stream, which was a generational run we may never see again in the likes of the WNBA because of how much they exposed
Nope.
to us. Um, Man, that was a good stream. And I'm only saying that because the stream was so good. I think that court will T. I think Natisha accidentally was showing the stream during the 3-point skills contest and all of that. So the next day they came up to her, hey, you can have the stream, just keep your face towards you the whole time. Which is totally okay. But we still got to see really good moments outside of the game. Like I said, Kathy was dancing to Nuck If You Buck. You can dance all you want to, Kathy. The WNBPA still wants their money. The players still want their money. Pay us what you owe us. No matter the nothing but nothing pay, okay? On top of that, I just think that the Minnesota Lynx have really good momentum, and I don't really see anybody standing in their way. I think they could get up to 10 losses this season, just because they're going up against the New York Liberty mostly at the end of the season. They still have some more teams to face, like the Mercury, Aces, Fever, who they could all lose to. They did lose to Chicago, so it's not too far to assume that they could kind of lose to anybody at this point. But I think with the high that they're riding on right now, I don't really think nobody's gonna stand in their way. So shout out to the Minnesota Lynx. Y'all are actually making me like y'all, which is crazy because everybody says Minnesota doesn't have a personality, which I somewhat agree with. But Courtney and Letitia kind of saved everybody. Kayla McBride too, because she was catching
Yeah.
what Courtney was throwing. So I gotta
Mm-hmm.
slide that in there.
Yeah, 100%. Currently, just going off of remaining schedule strength, which I got from Tankathon again, Minnesota has the second hardest schedule left. They have 4 games against the New York Liberty left, which is wild to me, but now I'm thinking about it, that's true
Four.
because, yes, 4 games against the
Wow.
Liberty left. Kathy did something with that schedule. The Storm twice, Atlanta twice, the Aces 3 times, and Indiana 3 times. Of course, that could change just depending on teams' records, but I would say the Liberty 4 times, Seattle twice, and Atlanta twice are pretty daunting. Dallas has the strongest schedule left, which, sure, that doesn't change their situation much for the end of the year. The final team that we have left, of course, is the New York Liberty. We gave them an A minus. I wrote up this section and I couldn't help myself, but of course include the fact that they won the Emma Meesman sweepstakes. So they will be getting a ridiculous amount of star power added to the
Super
team.
team, super team, super team, super team.
Listen, they're moving like a New York basketball team, and I accept completely
The
accept
Knicks
that.
can never.
No, the Knicks could absolutely never. They make the Knicks look broke. And I know they're not. They just act like it. But the Liberty are pretty much just trying to stay consistent defensively. I feel like for the second half of the season, first half, they lost Jonquel Jones for a good chunk of time due to an ankle injury that had gotten re-aggravated. And so they just wanted to rest her and sit her for as long as possible before the All-Star break, which I think was very smart. They also didn't have Leonie Fevich for a period of time because of Eurobasket, and Niara Sabally has been dealing with some health issues as well. Um, then you also had just various random injuries pop up with Sabrina Ionescu and also Natasha Cloud. So it hasn't been a very unhealthy season for New York, but there have been hiccups here and there. But Jonquel Jones came back yesterday. She looked fantastic. Brianna Stewart in the first half of the season has still been managing to put up almost 20 points per game, even though she's shooting 21% from 3-point range, which is pretty bad. But
She's up 2% because I think last time we talked it was like 19.
yeah, that's true. So she's putting in the work a little bit in that department, but she's still finding ways to score, and I will appreciate that. She's also averaging 6.9 rebounds per game, 3.9 assists, and 1.4 steals and blocks. So she's doing everything she can aside from shooting threes, which is fine because then they have Kennedy Burke coming off the bench, shooting a career high 3-point percentage and one of the best 3-point shooters in the WNBA all of a sudden. Sabrina Ionescu, obviously, who's always going to be a threat from there. For Natasha Cloud, sharing a backcourt is a bit unfair. And now they have Jonquel Jones coming in again, and then also Emma Midseason coming in probably in the next few weeks. So I would say the only thing that I mentioned that they should probably need to work on is just maintaining their defensive intensity for all 40 minutes of a game, because they absolutely have lapses that can bury them if they have them against tougher competition. But opposite to Minnesota, they have one of the weakest remaining schedules for the rest of the season. So aside from those 4 Minnesota games,
That's interesting.
they have a very light schedule. So they might be able to catch Minnesota in the standings if Minnesota is unable to just take care of business. But I could very well see Minnesota taking care of business. So we'll see what happens. But in my mind, New York is a lock for the second seed. I don't see anybody overtaking Minnesota, but they are looking extremely primed for another finals run with Minnesota. And I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see that. I think the only person who could take the number 2 seed away for them is the only other person who we gave an A- was the Phoenix Mercury.
Agreed.
And that I think the Phoenix Mercury can take that spot if Dewana Bonner plays like Dewana Bonner. We haven't really seen her. We've seen little spurts, but we haven't really seen her in her full force yet. But that's also, players kick into a different kind of gear the second half of the season, right before the regular season ends, and then heading into the playoffs. Like it's different little ramp up stages. So I'm not mad at her. Take your time coming back, do what you need to do. But I think ultimately New York and Minnesota right now are on the dean's list. I don't really think anybody can take anything away from them. Like I said, if it had to be a statue, just Phoenix. But I think that you know I'm not in New York right now. I really don't want to give y'all any props. I'm trying. I'm
I'm
trying
sorry.
so hard to give props, but it's not coming out. Congratulations on Emma, and I would just leave it at
I'll take it.
that.
Something to note really quickly is that Phoenix is the team with the weakest strength of schedule left. So you mentioned you could see Phoenix getting that second seed. If they take care of business against these weaker teams that they're facing, then I could totally see that as well. So yeah.
One small note before we go ahead and sign off. I did say, maybe moving to Boston was the best thing for the Sun next season. An article just dropped 27 minutes ago from Emily Adams. She put that ownership sent out a letter to season ticket holders telling them the renewal process and guaranteeing them that the team will play at Mohegan Sun in 2026. So it may be a farewell tour for the Sun next season, but Boston is on the throne.
There we go. And that is it. Those are our grades. And like we mentioned at the top of the episode, you can read the entire article and more of like our in-depth thoughts on the grades that we provided to all the teams on winsider.com. And we will absolutely be back next week, and we promise to actually publish this episode and all future episodes.
We promise. We promise.
Things are only getting spicier. You can catch all of our podcasts in the Winsider Podcast Network, anywhere that you get your podcasts. And thank you guys so much for listening again.